everyone in the room, and then also people who are watching via our YouTube channel. Happy to be here for National Leadership Team Informational Session number 2. Leslie Garten here, your national president, in not the normal voice that you usually hear, but the winter sickness has taken hold, but still happy to be here leading this group as we're talking about expectations and answering any specific questions regarding being a membership of our national leadership team. One of the biggest questions we get is concerning just time commitment. So we will start with that. We'll kind of go through each group and each specific national officer going through specific time commitments and expectations. And then from there, we'll have breakout rooms for those of us who are here in person for each of the different groups and be able to go through that. But I will hand the floor over to Katie to talk about the time commitment for the National Council.
And hi, everyone. My name is Katie Dukes. I'm currently serving as the National Vice President for Special Projects. So the National Council meets once a month, and sometimes we have to have special meetings as needed. Those are just kind of impromptu and scheduled whenever they are. All right, so our meetings are held via Zoom. They typically last 2 to 3 hours. And the purpose of our meeting is to provide updates on the business of the organization, ongoing work, and other updates that we have going on within our individual offices, and then as a National Council as a group. Our reports are due 3 days ahead of the meeting to allow time for everybody to review our reports, come up with any questions, see if there's anything that we need to develop further before we come to our meeting to discuss. The National Council meetings, we also have representatives from our Board of Trustees and from the TBSigma Alumni Association Executive Council. They liaise between the National Council and their respective groups. And then additionally, we host monthly meetings with the district counselors and chapter visitation associates to provide updates. So these meetings last typically about an hour once a month for each group. And then sometimes they go on longer, just depending on the needs and the content being discussed at that particular meeting. So let's see. We also meet regularly with our respective district officer teams to support their district initiatives and leadership development. So earlier tonight, I actually had a meeting with our district VPSPs where we talked about their service projects and just how their district campaigns are going. So that was a nice little touch base for us. Now I'm going to hand it over to Thea and Dave to talk about the Alumni Association.
Thank you, Katie. So I am Thea Murphy, the chairperson of the TBSigma Alumni Association Executive Council.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Alexander, and I am the vice chair of the TBSAA Executive Council.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the time commitment for serving on the Executive Council. Typically, the Executive Council meets once a month. But we do have special meetings that are scheduled as needed to do events and take care of additional business. We have monthly meetings that are held online via Zoom, and they typically last 1.5 to 2 hours, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, depending on the needs of the group. We meet to handle the business of the organization, provide progress on the strategic plan goals, and give other pertinent updates. Monthly reports are typically due 3 days ahead of the meeting to allow the time for the EC members to review the topics and updates and allow for the chairperson to create the agenda for the meeting. Directors are expected to contribute monthly to the newsletter, and it's typically due 5 days after the monthly meeting so that we can send it out in a timely manner. Additionally, committee meetings are convened as needed to support the ongoing work of each director. So those meetings can vary in length based on how much you have to meet, how much you have to discuss, how often you meet. So some committees meet more often, some committees meet less often. It depends on the work. And then, of course, we attend sorority meetings and functions. to make connections with alumni and network, of course. And then we also partner with district alumni leaders to create meaningful experiences for alumni who attend like national convention, district conventions, and any other events. So that's the time commitment in a nutshell, and I will pass it to my colleague, Rosalind McDonald, the chairperson of the board.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Murphy. Again, my name is Rosalind McDonald. I am your current Board of Trustee Chair. And joining us this evening is also...
Hi, everybody. I'm Adrienne Rawl, and I am the Vice Chairperson for the Board of Trustees.
Great. And so we'll kind of tag team a little bit here and there, but I'll get us started. Board used to meet, I think, every 6 weeks, but we switched it this particular biennium. We're meeting once a month, and I think that's working pretty well for us. It's usually the second Wednesday of the month, but of course, every biennium when we get ready to go to National Council, we'll talk about that as a group and decide if that particular date is still working for us collectively due to our schedules. We do meet via Zoom or Google Meet. Let's see, the meetings are about, we go ahead and put it on the calendar for like a good 2-hour block, but it could go longer than that depending on, what's put before us or what we have to discuss. And again, the time frame as far as like what time we meet right now, currently we're meeting at 8 p.m. But again, that's because it works with the group that is currently serving on the Board of Trustees. That time could change, the date could change depending on the group that is set up at that time. Reports, what do we do at those meetings? We report out on what you're responsible for. So as a chair, if I'm dealing with something with the president or my counterpart with Kappa Kappa Psi or the council, I report out on things that are happening with the organizations as a whole, whether it's just Tau Beta Sigma or Tau Beta Sigma and Kappa Kappa Psi together, and discuss those things that need to be voted on, discussed, where we're making a decision so we can come back and jointly make a decision together. Each committee, there's a vice chair report, there's a CDP report, which is the financial piece as far as like donations and fundraising and things of that nature. We do have a finance chair who speaks to that, the scholarship chair, our legacy chair who deals with a lot of legacy items with the organizations, our past national presidents, programs and things we do with them. So everybody does report out of what they've been doing for the following month, any questions, comments, issues, concerns that they may have there. We do expect everybody to attend those meetings, be present, and collaborate on the issues that we have going on and make sure that your voice is being heard and we make a collective decision. Also, if we're talking about going back to donations and financial commitments, it's expected that, the Board of Trustees, we're kind of the front runners when it comes to donations and things of that nature. So we're expected to participate. There isn't, we can say a good number to go with $100 annually, but you can always do more, of course. We love more. But we like to be the front runners when it comes down to donations and when it comes to stuff like Giving Tuesday, or we're asking for 1946, or we're asking for the Century Club, or things of that nature. If we're doing a campaign for the sorority, we like to be the front runners to say, hey, join us in that commitment to further sorority to different and higher heights. Travel. Let's see, we're talking about our winter council meetings, which usually happen in January. I know we talked about it at the last session, and our summer council meetings that happens usually second weekend of July-ish. And then if it's a national convention year, it'll happen during that week. But travel is usually taking care of our lodging in our hotels and travel and things of that nature for those meetings. There's other meetings we can attend, but those are strictly voluntary moves that we make. And we do take care of those financial commitments, whether it's lodging and travel on our own. We are encouraged as Board of Trustees to attend district conventions. As we know, there's 6 of them each year. and we like to support our national council and our sorority and everybody as a whole to participate in those events. And again, it's just as your schedule allows, and if you would prefer. And so we do a call to the Board of Trustees to see who wants to attend and things of that nature to support the council, TBSA, the sorority as a whole, in different things that happens at those district conventions, whether it's advising or it's just being there, helping out, troubleshooting, things of that nature. So kind of hands-on, all hands on deck for those particular events. Let's see here. I'm going to kick it now over to Adrian to kind of give more in depth about our different types of meetings and when they actually happen and things of that nature. Go for it, Adrian.
Sure. So as Rosalind alluded to, there are typically 2 in-person meetings for the Board of Trustees. The first one happens in January, typically the weekend of Martin Luther King Jr.'s celebration. And we meet in person at different locations. So in convention years, we like to meet at the convention site. That gives us the opportunity to learn more about the host city, the host site, the convention center, help the National Council with any preparations that they may need to make, help our TBSAA friends with any plans that they need to make. When it's a non-convention year, then we like to be at other locations. So we've been in Stillwater at our headquarters site. We've also gone to other places, other destinations when it's worked out or when we're maybe looking for different options or more inexpensive options. Our summer council meetings are also then held in person, and summer council meetings are typically held in conjunction with our National Leadership Conference if that conference is going to happen in person for our district officers. It's also held in conjunction with the National Convention in National Convention years. So we just kind of piggyback onto that so that we're not incurring more travel expense than necessary. On non-convention years, again, the site can change. Over the last several years, we have had that in Stillwater when we've been able to. That gives our students, if they're attending National Leadership Conference, the opportunity to see our headquarters, to see the station, to see the Wava Garden, all of that. But again, if for some reason it can't be in Stillwater, we can go to a different location that would be just as good for us, just as inexpensive of an option for us. We try to really pay attention to our expenses when we're traveling. Like Rosalind mentioned, we do like to attend district conventions as we are able, but those expenses are out of pocket for our Board of Trustees members unless there's some specific reason that a trustee needs to be present at that convention. So while travel is covered by the sorority for our official meetings at Winter Council and at Summer Council, they are not the sorority is not responsible for paying for our travel for those district conventions unless, again, for some reason it's for official sorority business. We do like to volunteer our time and energies to go to those district conventions as we are able to. We like to be present for our students, for our alumni, support our headquarters staff, support our national council. But again, that is an out-of-pocket volunteer expense.
Thank you so very much, Adrian. And now, Madam President, do I kick it back to you at this point?
Sure, yeah.
Allison.
I'll pass it over to Allison, yes.
Yes, sorry about that. I didn't see the name. Allison.
All right. Thanks, Rosalind. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Lehman. I serve as the National Vice President for Membership and Expansion. So we've all kind of talked about the big picture things of time commitment and responsibilities and meetings. There's definitely an ebb and flow around a membership year when it comes to what that time commitment looks like. So we have a few periods that are very busy. I would say for my role especially, but for most of the National Council, the beginning and end of both of the semesters is a very busy period of time, particularly with status changes or chapter support needs kind of coming to our awareness and fruition. Another really busy time for everyone who is represented on this call is during our convention season. So during that March and April time period, we are keeping the wheels moving of the organization across the country while also ensuring that we're present and engaging in person while we're attending the district conventions. So I think those would be the biggest time periods of time that have really, really busy seasons. But there's also some other time commitment information information, and I'll get us started and then pass it around the National Council. So in my role as the VPME, it's a very busy position. There are a lot of regular meetings that are occurring. So as was mentioned previously, the National Council calls, as well as the district counselor and chapter visitation associate calls, which take place on a monthly basis. I also regularly attend committee meetings, including the expansion committee and the curriculum committee. Outside of these standing meetings, I'm doing a lot of work in engaging with our leadership team and with chapters and with directors of bands to ensure that they have supports they need, to ensure that our different programs and initiatives are taking place as expected, and also dealing with the things that come up when they come up. So if in the instance we have an investigation that needs to take place, I work to coordinate with our national headquarters team on implementing that investigation process, and then also on the support once we're past that point in time. And have some results. So there's some regular things, and then you have to be ready to quickly pivot and turn as needed to make sure that we're providing on-time support for our chapters and for our members. I also do work closely with our national headquarters staff. So I do have a regular 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job, but sometimes it's taking a quick phone call during a lunch break or after work to make sure that I'm able to engage with our staff during their business hours and make sure that our needs are met there as well. There's a whole lot more that goes into the VPME position, but I think that's the general swaths of the time commitment. And I'll pass it over to Katie to talk about the VPSP role.
All right, so our VPSP role, kind of like Allison mentioned, we have busy times at different points throughout the year, particularly around our big deadlines for Focus on 5. So one of our big deadlines is June 1st. That's the ending point of the campaign for most years. And then also for our red stripe, that is due closer to the middle of October or so. So part of going into that requires you to keep track of the Discord server, communicating with chapters that have submitted their stripes and lyre pieces, and along those lines, or alongside of that, is coordinating with the women in music speakers, keeping up with just your emails and project management in general. Typically, it takes about an hour, 2 hours a week just for computer work, and then an additional 2 to 3 hours for different committee work. This position works with the History and Archives Committee as well as the Student Resource Development Committee. And so that does take some time as well, depending on the projects that are going on in the committees at the time. Leading up to National Convention, there will be other responsibilities, prepping up for the different programs that take place. Last biennium, we had Goose Chase. That was a complete hit. And so we're going to be bringing that back this biennium as well. So that will be, take some prep work beforehand, preparing to award the different recognition pieces for Focus on 5, take some prep work ahead of time as well. And of course, coordinating with our women in music speakers while we're not only ahead of time, but on the ground. All right, so I'll hand it over to Kelsey.
Hi, my name's Kelsey. I am your National Vice President for Communication and Recognition. And my time commitment varies as everyone else's does, but I would say it kind of correlates with the meetings that we have monthly, as well as the committee meetings and any additional needs. So I've noticed that my time commitment tends to be a 1-to-1 ratio. So about every hour of meeting, I want to spend about an hour prepping for it. If not, maybe an additional hour to kind of finesse or refine some of the things and needs that the National Council has in mind. So on a week-to-week basis, I would say that I spend about 2 to 3 hours a week prepping social media content, planning projects with in conjunction with the VPSP or the National Council as a whole, and making sure that things are communicated appropriately. The end of the month tends to be a little bit more heavy with the time commitment because I'm also putting out the Top Beta Tuesday newsletter, as well as prepping for the additional month, or for the sequential month. So you know, as Allison and Katie both said, there are ebbs and flows with some of the workflow, but typically in the spring, there's a lot more because we're also looking at the scholarships that that the Board of Trustees works with the VPCR to publicize and solicit applications for. So that will be a little bit busier of a season. The other time commitments kind of come with the communications committee and making sure that I'm running that and preparing for that committee meeting every month, as well as prepping anything that might come out of it to support our communications efforts moving forward. And then, of course, with the National Council, if there's any communication needs for social media, then either I will work one-on-one with the National Council member who needs whatever to be distributed, or it'll be passed along to me and the communications committee to bring together and push out on social media. But you can utilize certain platforms to schedule things out. So again, the ebbs and flows will go with being able to you know, work with your schedule, and everything's kind of like an estimate. If you really broke it down, you might spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes a day, but then like have heavier weekends, things like that. So you're really able to manipulate your schedule to fit with what you need to do for the National Council. And then, and then, sorry, the reason why the end of the months tend to be a little bit heavier in responsibility and time commitment is because we're also finalizing the minutes from the National Council call from for that month. So, so just plan on a little bit of a lighter early month and then a heavier end of the month. And I don't know if you want me to kick it to Leslie or Allison, but I'll go to Leslie.
Me, please. Thank you, Kels. All right, so national president time commitment, it's pretty saturated, just depends. Really just day to day, it's important as national president to always be continuing up on your emails. With this biennium, there's been some changes of things, like, for example, just some things that was not expected. For example, we do not have an executive director, so Rosalind, Adrian, and I really shoulder some of those responsibilities, so that takes some more time than what was expected in this role. I think for day-to-day duties, I spend typically an hour on average, just correspondence emails. It is not atypical during a normal, like during my 9 to 5 workday, is to get about 30 emails to respond to within 2 business days. So that does take up some time. You start to become a master at figuring out which things to respond to quickly, and then almost triaging what needs a little bit more of your time, or what who to correspond with to make sure you get those answers to the right people. So that's a factor. Talking with headquarters staff is fairly key. Talk with some members quite a bit just on our normal day-to-day business for TBS. For example, Aaron, who's our stand-in, he's been working on our podium articles, and so him and I have been in correspondence about that lately as we are working on the spring podium issue. This semester specifically is gear up time for not only 2025 district convention, but national convention this summer in Kentucky. now is the time to start thinking about going. Please do so, especially as you're watching this. This is your sign to do so. So I have weekly meetings with Bonko, who is the national president for Kappa Kappa Psi, and then also with Lisa Croston, who's our events coordinator, just making sure all of those things are in place. So typically, I'd say for national president, have a pretty steady flow of meetings. Sunday through Thursday has been my schedule of evenings for at least 1 to 3 hours, and then email correspondence and all of those other events as planned. That is a slow build. As we've talked about, you don't immediately become president just getting onto national council. There's a reason that we have those protocols and those constitutional artifacts in place to not be inundated. It's a slow burn somewhat that you gain in intensity with really each one of these roles. So I'd say it's pretty heavy right now because of getting ready for everything. But something I also take very seriously as national president is just you really have to be a good project manager, which I've learned a lot on how to do, and that is just providing support to my teammates. I have weekly meetings with Allison, Katie, and Kelsey just to make sure I'm supporting them as needed, that they can ask any questions, that I can ask them any questions. I think that's really important to keep our work moving forward within the organization. And so just time-wise, that does take time, but those are very beneficial time frames to make those things happen. So I think that's everything. Oh, what else did I miss on there? But yeah, it's work is daily. There is ebbs and flows for sure, just like in every position. But yeah. Does anyone board EC wise, anybody on council have anything else to add regarding expectations and commitments within your role? Okay. Seeing none, we'll have Katie talk about the overall expectations as a national leadership team member.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about the time commitment and just the individual expectations. So just overall, one thing that is obviously super important is to fulfill your constitutional duties and make sure that the operations of the sorority are rolling and functioning from day to day. We always want to support the initiatives of the sorority, making sure that our mission and vision stay at the forefront of our mind in everything that we do. Be a positive representation or representative of the organization. We do go to different events, and there are different opportunities for us to be in front of band directors, other nonprofit leaders, just many different people within the musical world. And so it's important for us to always have a positive reflection of Tau Beta Sigma. And then, of course, modeling the philanthropic spirit, both in our talents and treasures. Similar to what was mentioned before, sometimes we do make purchases out of pocket, and that's because of not only our love for the organization, but just wanting to give back. We already give so much of our talents, but it's important to also be a donor and making sure that we're giving back in every way that we can. I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey to talk about dynamics and collaboration.
Hello again. So as Leslie kind of touched upon before, the National Council works really closely together, and as the president in particular, she works with each and individual office. So my role as the VPCR with the president is to make sure that the voice and face of the organization is the president's vision and what the president wants to portray through social media and other various means of communication. They work very closely to make sure that those lines of communication are exactly what the sorority needs to communicate and all those things. And then various officers can partner together to work on different collaborations and different opportunities to work together. The president and VPME will work together to ensure that chapter visits are being performed or executed, and that various disciplinary procedures are being taken as needed. And the overall general chapter health is positive and forward thinking for the sorority. And then the president and VPSP will work together to plan for national convention, particularly with the women in music speakers and any events, special projects and events that need to happen at national convention. And then VPSP and VPCR collaborate on different initiatives, such as the 13 days of Tau Beta Sigma that happens every March. And then any other communications that are needed for things like Focus on 5, that will be distributed via social media, things like that. And then the other position that we haven't really touched upon is the appointed VPPR position, the Vice President for Professional Relations. Sorry, that was a mouthful for some reason. And they're appointed onto the National Council to be a liaison between the National Council or the sorority in general and the band, college and university band community. So we work in tandem with them to support their efforts to promote the National Intercollegiate Band, as well as any other music related endeavors. And then all officers kind of work together to govern and make decisions for the sorority. So we work every month we meet together and we work in tandem to make decisions and make sure that we're keeping the sorority's best interests at heart. And then I will say on a personal note that right now I'm recovering from an injury, and the rest of the council is being really supportive and helping me in my recovery. And so if there's ever a reason why someone cannot be present for any given amount of time, then the other members of the council are very supportive and in those efforts to make sure that the role is not being dropped to the wayside and everything for the sorority can kind of keep rolling seamlessly. So I will kick it back to Leslie.
Leslie, before you start, can
Yeah.
I jump in with a little bit of collaboration as well?
Sure.
Thank you. So for the EC, we also collaborate with many members of the National Council and the board as well. So in addition to collaborating with the fellow directors on the EC, we collaborate with the Board of Trustees, for example, during Giving Tuesday, as well as the VPCR for Giving Tuesday. We collaborate with the national president when there are initiatives that need to be focused down to the alumni. We also collaborate with the VPCR when it comes to streamlining communications to the organization at large. We collaborate with the VPPR with the welcome experience for the NIB participants. So working on all of the councils, we have an opportunity to collaborate even with the brothers on the board of directors. We collaborate for joint initiatives and planning for alumni events at different conventions. So these positions are very collaborative, and you get to not only work with lots of different people, but collaborate across the different councils. Thank you, Leslie.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So going along for our last section before questions, I'm talking about where we represent Tau Beta Sigma. So one of the obvious, or maybe what you see on our socials, is we go to various trade shows throughout the year. The two notable ones that we've been to most recently and consistently is Midwest Clinic, which is held every December in Chicago. And that is the National Band Directors K-12 and actually K-12 plus college band directors conference. And then the Texas Music Educators Association and that clinic, and that is in every February in San Antonio. We make sure we have a presence there along with our brothers of Kappa Kappa Psi. We make a point to attend national events in the marching world, such as DCI and HBCU Battle of the Bands. We always want to go to more of these. We get invited to specific state trade shows and things like that, but sometimes money and time is not on our side because we are all volunteers who work normal 9 to 5 jobs, and getting off work can sometimes be rough. And then also keeping our budgets constrained and not having students pay overages of dues so we can do those things, just trying to weigh the costs versus benefits of those things. So if anyone would like to donate towards any of those endeavors of attending any future events to represent the organization, please do not hesitate to do so. Yeah, I think that's the biggest things that we've got at this point. Hopefully that helps. Does anyone in the room, sorry if you hear a really loud teapot next to me, my apologies. Does anyone here have any questions at this time? Feel free to unmute or go in the chat. All right. I'm going to turn off the recording. Thank you all for watching at this time. We're going to go into our breakout rooms, but always hit up tbs@tbsigma.org. You'll get all of us and we can reach who you would like to. Okay, cool. Thank you, Rhonda. Let me stop things.